Chairman Barr, Ranking Member Foster, and honorable members of the subcommittee, thank you for inviting me to testify. My name is Sarah Flowers, and I am a Senior Vice President, Senior Associate General Counsel at the Bank Policy Institute. Prior to joining BPI, I spent several years focused on prudential regulatory policy at a regional bank, and for many years in private practice, I served bank clients of all sizes. BPI is a nonpartisan policy research and advocacy organization representing the nation's leading banks. On behalf of BPI members, we greatly appreciate this committee's leadership and the opportunity to provide perspective on regulatory overreach in the banking sector. In the United States, banks of all sizes play a vital role in fueling economic growth by recognizing the value each type of institution offers and appropriately tailoring regulatory requirements and supervision. Our banking system better supports the economy. Secretary Bessent recently noted that besides better tailoring of regulation, perhaps the single most important reform will be to refocus bank supervision on material financial risks. To support these goals, we offer a few recommendations. First, regulations need to reflect economic reality rather than being frozen in time. There's an urgent need to index regulatory tailoring thresholds for all banks for economic growth and inflation. Regulation that fails to evolve with the macroeconomic environment constrains growth without offering an offsetting benefit. Economic growth and inflation do not increase systemic risk in the financial system. As the economy expands, various sectors of the economy grow proportionally. Annually and automatically adjusting the tailoring category thresholds would prevent banks from facing more stringent regulations solely due to natural economic expansion. Once properly indexed, as new rules are developed, care must be taken to prescribe less stringent requirements for firms whose activities and structure present less risk. Rules designed to address the complex activities of internationally active banks should not be indiscriminately applied to smaller banks with less complex structures and business models. Second, effective tailoring requires effective supervision. By enacting a bipartisan tailoring law in 2018, Congress communicated to the banking agencies that they should take a holistic approach to regulation. However, that holistic approach has failed to take hold in supervision, where examiners treat regional banks and the largest banks with the same broad brush. Regional banks routinely report that the agencies use horizontal reviews to hold them to the same standards as global systemically important banks, or GSIBs, through the exam process. These banks are technically exempt from those standards, but nothing stops an examiner from imposing them by issuing a matter requiring attention, or MRA, in a non-public exam. A key reform should be the adoption of regulations that define an unsafe or unsound practice using a financial materiality standard. This would help ensure that enforcement actions are grounded in practices that genuinely threaten a bank's financial integrity. Finally, the exam ratings framework is broken. In the exam framework itself, a lack of focus on material financial risk leads to unwarranted CAMELS ratings downgrades as the ultimate output of the exam process. While this framework in theory evaluates 6 factors, it is the management rating, or the M, that dominates as a factor in the composite rating. The management rating is uniquely subjective. It is not based on any empirical or financial standard, but rather serves as a vehicle by which examiners can find fault with any aspect of a bank's compliance program or the bank's willingness to accede to examiner mandates. It is often where inappropriate focus on reputational risk can manifest. There are severe automatic consequences of an unsatisfactory management component rating. Removing or replacing the management component would help limit the assignment of unsatisfactory CAMELS ratings to institutions in poor financial condition, and better reflect that a bank should be considered well-managed if its management team is appropriately managing the risks that matter most. Because the exam process remains confidential, it is not subject to public scrutiny, and the ratings frameworks themselves provide no meaningful standard to govern their use or misuse. While the agencies have adopted internal appeals processes, the appeals involve senior personnel of the same agency involved in the dispute. This conflicts with fundamental principles of fairness and due process. Banks should be expressly permitted to appeal CAMELS exam findings and ratings to a legitimately neutral authority. We greatly appreciate this committee's thoughtful approach to these issues and stand ready to work with you to ensure that bank regulation and supervision supports financial stability without imposing undue burdens on institutions. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today, and I look forward to any questions.
Thank you, Ms.